I helped a woman inside the temple's hidden wall deliver a letter. The next day, the whole family received a generous reward from a noble patron. That night, a group of men in black broke into my home and slaughtered everyone, leaving no one alive except me. The noble woman I helped deliver the letter for, the returned lady of Yongan Manor, lifted my chin with her finger. A cup of poisoned wine ended this life of mine. I was reborn at the very moment I had just pried open the dog hole in the temple. Inside the hole, a woman with a bruised and swollen face looked at me in pleasant surprise. "Little girl, help me deliver a letter to the Yongan Marquis Manor, and I will surely reward you handsomely afterward." I blinked, waved my hand to cover the dog hole with weeds as it was, and after making sure no one had noticed, I quietly returned home. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. In my previous life, I had believed in the benefits this person promised and, as instructed, delivered the letter she had written in blood on a cloth to Granny Zhao of the Yongan Marquis Manor. That very day, news spread in the capital that there were lecherous monks at Luolan Temple. It was said that for over a decade, these lecherous monks had abducted dozens of women and imprisoned them in secret chambers deep within the temple for their own pleasure. If these women became pregnant, the children would be discarded in abandoned wells as soon as they were born. These lecherous monks were audacious, and it was said that many of the women they abducted were wives and daughters of noble and wealthy families. The next day, our family received a reward from the Lady of Yongan Marquis, 100 taels of gold. It was exactly as the woman had promised. At dinner, my parents excitedly planned the family's future at the table. They intended to buy a small courtyard house in the northern part of the city and send my younger brother to school. My sister and I would also have generous dowries to find good husbands. The whole family fell asleep with beautiful dreams, only to be hacked to death by black-clad intruders in the middle of the night. This group of people is well trained, killing with clean efficiency, one strike, one head, yet they left only me alive. I watched helplessly as the heads of my dearest loved ones rolled one by one beside me, tears of blood streaming from my eyes. Why? I was knocked unconscious and taken to a refined small courtyard. The woman who entrusted me with the letter arrived gracefully, supported by Nanny Zhao. At this moment, she was dressed in fine silk, the bruises on her face concealed by a thick layer of white powder. Her dark hair was swept up into a high chignon, secured by a gold filigree peacock hairpin inlaid with emeralds, exuding an overwhelming air of nobility. There was no trace of her previous disheveled state. Her fingers, painted with blood-red nail polish, lightly lifted my chin, her eyes filled with madness and cruelty. "With your lowly status, how dare you presume to be my benefactor? Then I grant you and your family eternal riches underground." A cup of poisoned wine ended my life. The agony of the poisoned wine tearing through my guts faded as my consciousness slipped away. I awoke from the darkness, reborn at the very moment I had just crawled through the temple's dog hole. Inside, a woman with a face bruised blue and purple looked at me with pleasant surprise. "Little girl, if you help me deliver a letter to the Yongan Marquis Manor, I will reward you handsomely." I blinked, waved my hand to cover the dog hole with weeds as it was, and after confirming that no one had noticed, I quietly returned home. But 7 days later, news still came from the capital that there were lecherous monks at Luolan Temple. This time, it was said that the son of the Marquis of Yongan, while picking up the Marchioness of Yongan who was returning home from a visit, stopped by the temple to pray for the old Marquis and accidentally picked up a plea for help from a trapped woman, thus uncovering the evil deeds of the lecherous monks. The son of the Marquis of Yongan personally led troops to raid Luolan Temple and slaughtered all the wicked monks inside. However, all the women trapped in the temple had been killed by the lecherous monks to cover up their crimes, a pitiful and lamentable tragedy. Because of this righteous act, the emperor personally commended the heir of Yongan Marquis and granted the Marchioness of Yongan the title of third-rank lady. It was only then that I learned the Marchioness of Yongan had been raised by the Empress Dowager since childhood and was as close as siblings with the current emperor. No wonder the Marquis of Yongan did not mind her being humiliated by the lecherous monk for so many years. After learning this news, I felt a vague unease in my heart. I hurried home and only breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing my parents, elder sister, and younger brother safe and sound. I begged Grandpa to take our family out of the city tonight, but he scolded me for being unreasonable. Mother said I was throwing a childish tantrum. My elder sister quietly pulled me aside and produced a few pine nut candies from her palm. "Be good, Liana, don't trouble father and mother. Keep these for yourself and eat them quietly, don't let little brother see." I grabbed my sister's hand in return. "Sister, could you take little brother to stay at Granny Huang's next door for the night?" Finally, after my tantrums and rolling on the ground, My sister took my younger brother to Granny Huang's house next door. In the dead of night, a group of men in black broke into our home. Just like in the previous life, hiding under the bed, I trembled as I heard my parents' dying screams. In the end, I was dragged out from under the bed and taken to that small courtyard in the Marquis of Yong'an's residence. The Lady of Yong'an who appeared before me just as she had in my previous life. Her fingers tipped with blood-red nail polish gently lifting my chin, her eyes filled with madness and cruelty. Someone as lowly as you dares to refuse me, you ungrateful wretch. I'll show you the consequences of defying me. My sister and brother were thrown before me, their eyes filled with terror. Once again, I watched as the heads of my loved ones were severed before my eyes, stimulated by the blood before my eyes. This time I was stabbed to death by the Lady of Yong'an Marquis with a dagger. Opening my eyes again, I looked at the woman in the cave, her face covered in bruises, and took the letter from her hand. Watching the blood-stained cloth turn to ashes, I clapped my hands clean, picked up the mushrooms I had gathered today, and headed home. Mother was cooking in the kitchen, while my elder sister sat on a stool in the yard, making shoes. Seeing me return, my sister waved to me. Liana, come quickly, try on these shoes I made for you and see if they fit. Bathed in the sunset glow. My sister was softly outlined by a halo of light. I rushed forward and threw myself into my sister's arms, wrapping my arms around her waist, feeling the warmth of her body. Sister, this time we must both live well. After the experiences of the previous 2 times, from then on, I pestered my father every day to take me with him when he went into the city. After Grandpa went to work, I would dress as a boy and linger in various tea houses, gathering all the information I could about the Lady of Yong'an Manor. For ordinary folks, the gossip about the rich and powerful is the best accompaniment to a drink. It also allowed me to gather quite a few pieces of information, some true and some false. For example, the true identity of the Lady of Yong'an Marquis is the illegitimate daughter of the princess. When the Marquis of Yong'an was young, he had a sweetheart, but under the pressure of the princess's influence, he had to marry the Marchioness of Yong'an. It is said that the wife of the Marquis of Yong'an is domineering, harsh, and jealous, and any woman who has been close to the Marquis of Yong'an has met a bad end. Among them was the childhood sweetheart of the young Marquis of Yong'an, Shen Qinglan, the youngest daughter of the Grand Tutor to the Crown Prince. Shen Qinglan was once a renowned talented woman in the capital, admired by countless young men for her unparalleled talent and beauty. Yet it was this very woman who was abducted by bandits on her way to worship at the temple and was not found until the next day at the city gate. That very night, Shen Qinglan ended her own life with a white silk cord. Opinions vary on this matter, but most people believe it is closely related to the wife of Marquis Yong'an. But one thing is certain, the Marquis of Yong'an and his wife were not on good terms. Otherwise, the Marchioness would not have fallen out with the Marquis over a mere concubine and stayed away for several years to return home and pay respects to her ancestors. The images of my family members dying in both lifetimes have become my daily nightmares. I know that as long as the threat of Lady Yong'an remains, danger could strike at any moment. I also once thought of going to Luolan Temple to kill this woman and be done with it, but I am not only young but also a woman. The most likely outcome is that I would fail to kill anyone and end up trapped myself. The next day, with dark circles under my eyes, I quietly went to the back hill of Luolan Temple carrying a pot of lamp oil. Only after watching the temple burst into raging flames with my own eyes did I sneak down the mountain along the small path. I endured the anxiety until the next day, then forced myself to follow Grandpa into the city, suppressing my inner turmoil. Indeed, the streets and alleys are all abuzz with talk about the fire at Luolan Temple yesterday. Everyone also mentioned the wife of the Marquis of Yong'an. She didn't die, only her appearance was ruined in this life, because the incident happened too suddenly and there were too many people trying to put out the fire. No one could cover for her, and the fact that she was kept as a secret lover by the lecherous monk became known to everyone. I panicked and found Grandpa, urging him to quickly go home and take Grandma and the others away. Grandpa, who is usually gentle, scolded me for being unreasonable and told me to go home alone. After returning home, I tearfully begged Mother to quickly take elder sister and younger brother away. If we don't leave, tonight will bring a disaster that wipes out our entire family. But everyone thought I was possessed by evil spirits or had gone mad. I knelt crying before elder sister. Elder sister, believe me. You must hold younger brother and leave with me tonight, or our whole family will die. My sister gently wiped away my tears. Be good, Liana, don't fuss, have a good sleep, and you'll feel better tomorrow. In despair, after everyone had fallen asleep, I held my little brother and secretly slipped out of the house through the dog hole. Watching the raging fire engulfing our home, I held my brother and fled in panic. a pair of large hands suddenly grabbed me by the neck. Throwing both me and my brother into the blazing inferno, I woke again from the agony of burning flesh, the scent of charred skin still lingering at the tip of my nose. Taking the letter handed to me by the woman, I carefully tucked it into my bosom to hide it. In this life, I no longer seek only to survive, I will make the Lady of Yongen Manor wish she were dead. This time, I delivered the letter to the Lord of Yongen. I never expected that merely mentioning news of Lady Yongen would grant me an audience with the Marquis of Yongen himself. Trembling with fear, I knelt and prostrated myself on the ground, my body shaking uncontrollably. A pair of leather boots embroidered with golden threads slowly approached me, and a gentle, mellow voice sounded above my head. Where is the letter? That's right. I changed my mind at the last minute and only informed Yongen, whose trusted steward, Xiao Qing, about his wife's presence at the temple. This time, I bet correctly, Yongen, who indeed did not want his wife to return. Using that letter as leverage, I became the second concubine of the Yongen Hu residence. The first one had been drowned in a pond for adultery with an outsider long before the Lady of Yongen Hu left to visit her family. When I was taken away from home in a small sedan chair, my father sat in the courtyard with a dark face, smoking a dry pipe. While my mother and elder sister wept uncontrollably, only my young brother, unaware of the world's ways, held a handful of silver ingots and laughed heartily. Before leaving, I urged my father and mother to buy a small courtyard in the northern part of the city and send my younger brother to school. Now that my sister has a generous dowry, she can find a good man to marry. Since there was no mistress in the Marquis's mansion for the time being, after being carried in through the side door, I was settled in a courtyard filled with bamboo. I was illiterate, and it was only through the introduction of the old woman who brought me here that I learned the courtyard was named Green Lord's Abode. I thought it was just a transaction, but Lord Yongen didn't seem to think so. In the middle of the night, Lord Yongen, Xiao Fei, barged into my room reeking of alcohol. He gently pulled me into his embrace, and my body trembled uncontrollably. I was not an innocent young girl. I knew what I would lose by becoming a man's concubine, and I had long been prepared for it. The warm, moist breath on my neck raised a layer of fine goosebumps as Xiao Fei rested his head beside my neck and fell asleep. I stayed awake until dawn, and nothing happened throughout the night. After that night, Xiao Fei came to stay with me almost every night whenever he had no other matters to attend to. During the day, he even took the elegant pleasure of coming to the Green Qing Pavilion to teach me how to read and write. Every time this happened, I would try my best to please, but Xiao Fei said, "Liana, you don't have to be like this. Now you are the mistress of the Marquis's household, so there's no need to be so reserved. If any of the servants dare to show you disrespect, just let me know." So, under Xiao Fei's arrangement, I began managing the household of the Yongen Marquis at the Green Qing Garden, even though I could barely read a few big characters. But these were not problems. As there were experienced matrons to assist me from the side, I was merely putting on a show. The life of wealth and comfort is alluring, but I constantly remind myself to stay vigilant. All of this was exchanged for that one letter. The wife of Marquis Yongen, Chu Xining, is still alive. Although the Marquis's household had been without a mistress for many years, the inner courtyard was managed with meticulous order. Not a drop of water could be splashed in, nor a single secret leaked out. My every move is being watched in secret, so I am cautious in my words and actions, carefully studying Xiao Fei's preferences. For example, he likes me best in white and green dresses, and he dislikes it when I wear too many gold and silver hairpins, saying they are too vulgar. He most enjoys holding my hand and writing or drawing on the desk. When moved by affection, he would whisper "my dear" in my ear. This darling is so tender and affectionate, it makes one's thoughts wander. Every time this happens, my earlobes turn slightly red, and I lower my head in shy embarrassment, but this time, it was different from before. Suddenly, my right earlobe was enveloped in a warm, moist sensation, startling me with such shy surprise that I couldn't help but lean slightly to the left. A chill touched my earlobe, startling me. Before the person could leave, I quickly turned and wrapped my arms around Xiao Fei's waist, burying my face against his chest. Shyly, I murmured, "Please have mercy on me, Marquis, Herr Tilda." Xiao Fei's voice remained gentle and mellow, but the warmth was gone. The cool breeze from the open door snapped me out of my daze. This is actually an opportunity, although it's quite risky. It took about half an hour before I returned to Green Bamboo Court in a daze from Xiao Fei's study. Even within the Marquis's household, few knew that there was a secret door in the Marquis's study in the outer courtyard that led directly to the inner courtyard. Moreover, Xiao Fei disliked having others around whenever we were together, so when I emerged from the secret door with a flushed face, Nanny Lin, who took care of me, was only slightly surprised that I had returned a bit early this time. The servants in the Marquis's household were good in this regard, they never pried into their master's affairs. That night, Xiao Fei did not come. The second night, Xiao Fei still did not come. The third night. It wasn't until Xiao Fei had not come to stay with me for 7 consecutive nights that the attitude of the servants in Luqing Garden toward me began to change, with the exception of Nanny Lin, especially Fuxia, the senior maid who had been attending to me closely. Not only did she neglect her daily duties in caring for me, but she also took advantage of scolding the junior maids sweeping the courtyard to mock my lowly status, saying that even if I were draped in silk, a pheasant could never transform into a phoenix. The jewelry in the pearl box was dwindling, and though I knew who was taking it, I didn't dare say a word, until one day, a commotion broke out in the courtyard. Nanny Zhao, dressed in luxurious attire, led a group of servants as they stormed into the green bamboo court with an imposing air. Seeing me, clad in a light green dress, sitting calmly in the courtyard admiring the flowers, Nanny Zhao paused for a moment, then sneered. This is the newly arrived concubine Lian. She does have some charm, but she hasn't even served the tea to the mistress, so her status is not properly established. It's improper for her to stay here according to etiquette. Someone, quickly escort Miss Lian to the guest room. We'll make arrangements after the mistress returns and she performs the concubine ceremony. With that, Matron Zhao gave a signal, and 2 sturdy women stepped forward, each grabbing one of my arms. Xiao Fei, having just received the news, entered the courtyard to see me being dragged on the ground, my hairpins askew, my jade green dress covered in mud. Stop. Stepping forward, he kicked the burly woman who was dragging me aside, one by one, then pulled me into his embrace, his tone tinged with anger. Nanny Zhao, I respect you as an elder by the lady's side, which is why I've shown you some courtesy, but have I indulged you to the point where you no longer know your place? Nanny Zhao remained unperturbed, performing a proper curtsy to Xiao Fei with due respect, reporting to the Marquis, the lady has not returned, and the reason, I presume, is clearer to you than to this humble servant. Though I am of little talent, whatever I have today is all thanks to the grace of my benefactor. Even after following the lady from the palace to the Marquis' residence, I have always adhered to the teachings of my benefactor, staying within my bounds and never daring to overstep or show disrespect. You, after all, Xiao Fei was still wary of the distinguished guest that Nanny Zhao had emphasized with a deliberate tone. She snorted and carried me out of the Green Qing courtyard. From that day on, I moved from the Green Qing courtyard to a side room next to Xiao Fei's study. It turns out that in this vast inner courtyard of the Marquis's residence, even without a mistress, Xiao Fei still couldn't call the shots. How interesting. The day after I moved out, I learned from the newly assigned maid, Kui Dai, about the tragic fate of Fuxia, who had been beaten to death. Seeing my face turn deathly pale, the little maid finally stopped her tale and left contentedly to ask Nanny Zhao for a reward. She didn't know, however, that this was already the 3rd time I had heard her recount Fuxia's death. The first time was after I had been cold-shouldered by Xiao Fei, and Fuxia, who had always harbored ambitions to rise in status, could no longer contain herself. It's often said that it's better to marry a servant from a noble house than a daughter from a common family. As a homeborn servant of the Marquis's household, raised by the old Marquise herself, Fuxia was not exactly a master of the arts but skilled in all of them, and her aspirations knew no bounds. It was only due to the pressure from the Marquis's wife and the fate of the previous concubine that she restrained her thoughts. After many years, the wife had not returned, and rumors of her death had long circulated in the Marquis's household. Coupled with my own success as an illiterate country girl rising to power, it gave Fuxia, who had been waiting in vain to marry, a glimmer of hope. Her little schemes were not hidden from me in the slightest. But unfortunately, Xiao Fei's eyes had never once fallen upon her. In truth, Xiao Fei's eyes had never truly seen me, Liana, either. He was only looking through me at another person, Shen Qinglan, courtesy name Luqing. Fuxia did not know that even the most beautiful colors, to these high-ranking individuals, were merely like a domestic animal with a fine coat. Yes, just livestock, not even considered a pet. Who would care about a brightly feathered chicken in a henhouse? Fuxia didn't understand. She thought she had leverage, using the jewelry she stole from me to bribe Nanny Zhao. The clothes and jewelry that Xiao Fei gave me were all made in the style that Shen Qinglan used to wear, and the last time they appeared before Nanny Zhao was on that concubine who was drowned in the pond. Nanny Zhao was an old servant brought out of the palace by Lady Chunning, the wife of Yong'an Marquis. How could she be easily deceived by sweet talk? First, she had Fuxia beaten half to death, extracted my background from her, and then stormed into Luqing Garden with her people. That time, Xiao Fei didn't make it in time. after being forced to drink medicine by Nanny Zhao, I was drenched with icy well water and locked in the woodshed. In my final moments, burning with fever yet shivering uncontrollably from the cold, the little maid, Suejia, slipped quietly into the woodshed and told me about Fuxia's fate. She ended by imitating Nanny Zhao's tone. People are born into 3 classes and 9 ranks. How dare a lowly wretch covet what doesn't belong to her? She deserved to die. She told me that the rewards and punishments of the noble are both blessings. The second time, I did not avoid Xiao Fei's affection. After a night of intimacy, my daily necessities and lifestyle improved significantly. I thought I would have plenty of time to deal with Nanny Zhao. But Fuxia had long asked her brother to secretly investigate my family background and found my elder sister. If I resemble Shen Qinglan by 7 parts, then my sister resembles her by 8. Thus, to please Xiao Fei, Fuxia's brother used my safety as a threat, forcing my sister to become Xiao Fei's mistress. The last time I saw her was in the garden of Lady Yong'an's estate. She had been decapitated, her head hollowed out and half buried in the soil as a flower pot. With vibrant balsam flowers blooming on top, a dignified woman, bearing some resemblance to Lady Chuzening of Yong'an Marquis, admired the freshly painted vermilion on her nails and casually decided my fate. Before dealing with her, tear off her face, it's an eyesore. The third time, before meeting Xiao Fei, the Marquis of Yong'an, I went to find someone first. Shen Tai, the former grand tutor to the crown prince, having died several times, I am no longer that ignorant girl I once was. Understanding that my family and I are like ants in the eyes of these noble people, in Xiao Fei's study, I saw the secret letters he wrote to the current emperor, helping him secretly search for the whereabouts of the former crown prince. Shen Tai, of course, would not casually meet with a peasant girl like me. Through the secret letters Xiao Fei reported to the emperor, I learned that Shen Tai, who was not being put to good use, would go to stay at a villa in the suburbs on the 1st and 15th of every month. I pretended to be a young man and deliberately broke one of my legs, collapsing on the road he had to take to the estate. Shen Tai indeed lived up to his reputation for kindness. He didn't ignore me but instead sent his steward to inquire. Seizing the opportunity, I slipped the prepared note into the steward's hand and mouthed silently that there was a spy beside Shen Tai. On the second day after I moved into the Shen family estate, a young servant by Shen Tai's side was beaten to death for offending the women of the household. Although my excuse couldn't withstand scrutiny, I not only helped Shen Tai catch a spy but also handed him a hostage. Why would he waste such a valuable pawn? I believe that before the matter is settled, Shen Tai will take good care of my family. This time, I was brought into the Marquis's mansion by Xiao Fei's heroic rescue. Posing as an orphan girl who came to the capital to seek refuge with distant relatives, the background was arranged by Shen Tai. I only needed to play the role of Shen Qinglan's double. Unlike the previous 2 times, this time I deliberately and carelessly ruined one of Shen Qinglan's paintings, angering Xiao Fei. As expected, Fuxia couldn't hold back and, during the days I was being neglected, stole the jewelry to bring to Nanny Zhao. Only this time, what she stole was no imitation. Once, when Xiao Fei was drunk, he had me recline on the couch to paint. On a whim, he took out a jade-carved bamboo hairpin from a hidden compartment and tucked it into the side of my loosely tied hair. After several lifetimes of life and death and the special training at the Shen Manor, my appearance, which is 70% similar to Shen Qinglan's, combined with the aura, makes me 90% similar to her. Lost in the night, Xiao Fei didn't even notice that I had taken the hairpin away. Zhao Momo, who prides herself on being a loyal servant, despises traitors like Fuxia the most. In every instance, Fuxia never met a good end, and her elder brother, because he was secretly investigating me, died in an accident arranged by Shen Tai's men, sitting high in the main seat. Nanny Zhao blew on the foam in her teacup, exuding an air of aloofness and coldness. Anyone unaware of her identity would surely mistake her for the mistress of some noble household. Below, I knelt prostrate on the ground, playing the part of humility and terror to the extreme. This morning, when I woke up, a dagger was stuck by my bedside. The dagger was smooth, sharp, and devoid of any flashy decorations. It was a tool meant for killing. Thinking of what the little maid had said, I quietly slipped into the inner courtyard to seek out Nanny Zhao and offer my allegiance. After taking a sip of tea, Nanny Zhao finally began to size me up. You say you have something important to tell me. Yes, I know the whereabouts of the mistress. Crash, the exquisite teacup fell from the table. Ignoring her scalded red wrist, Nanny Zhao grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. Tell me everything you know in detail. If you dare hide even the slightest detail, I will make you wish you were dead. Finally, I saw that beautiful lady again, one of the most esteemed women in the state of Liang, Princess Chang, Chu Huayu. The one who, in her previous life, turned my elder sister into a flower pot for amusement. Rumors say Chu Huayu is eccentric and capricious, having tortured to death all 3 of her previous husbands, regardless of their status or background. If it weren't for Lady Chuzening of Yong'an Manor bearing such a striking resemblance to her, no one would have imagined that such a woman would bear a child for a man. Do you know where Aining is? Long fingernails dug firmly into my chin, as if trying to pierce through flesh and blood. My face was forced upward. Chu Huayu's face showed undisguised disgust as she took the silk handkerchief handed by her maid, wiped her hands, and threw it at my face. If there is even the slightest discrepancy in what you say, I will make you regret ever being born. That same year, a momentous event shook the kingdom of Liang. The former crown prince Chu Qi, who was believed to be dead, had actually survived and raised an army in the northwest to restore order and justice. After the current Emperor Chu Qiu ascended the throne, he first built the Longevity Palace for the Empress Dowager and later renovated her mausoleum, which led to the depletion of the national treasury. Later, she indulged the princess in extravagance and debauchery, persecuted loyal officials, traded official positions, and favored slanderous ministers, which had long stirred public resentment. Thus, when Chu Qi raised his call to arms, the entire nation responded. When his troops reached the city gates, no one expected that it was the princess herself who opened them wide. It is said that on that day, the main street of the southern gate was littered with corpses and flowed with rivers of blood. After Chu Qi ascended to power, he sent people to scrub the streets for 7 days and nights before the bloodstains were finally washed clean. After the new emperor ascended the throne, the first thing he did was to assess merits and faults. The Grand Princess knew that this time things could not be done as before. She still wanted to replicate the merit of supporting the emperor as she had done last time. However, Chu Qi was not Chu Qiu, and the outcome differed too much from what she had anticipated. Grand Tutor Shen Tai was appointed as the right chancellor for his meritorious service in assisting the emperor, while the Grand Princess Chu Huayu and the Empress Dowager were each granted white silk and poisoned wine to end their lives. The Marquis of Yong'an and his wife were executed by public dismemberment in the streets, with my limbs severed and eyes gouged out, kept alive in a large urn. I let out a strange, guttural sound from my throat. Heh. The young maid, Suejia, having finished relaying the information she had gathered, said impatiently, "All right. I've told you everything I could find out. Now, where exactly is the most valuable treasure hidden? Tell me quickly." Visiting the Grand Princess was actually a scheme devised by Chu Qi and Shen Tai. They threatened my family to force me into luring the Grand Princess out of the city. This is a situation with no way out, because they only wanted to make a deal with the princess. I informed them about the matter of Lady Chuzening, the wife of Marquis Yong'an, at Luolan Temple. Because she was rescued a year too late, Lady Yong'an returned with a large belly. This matter involved the royal family's reputation, so no one knew about Lady Yong'an's return. The once flourishing Luolan Temple was completely slaughtered by mountain bandits from nowhere, vanishing into thin ash overnight and becoming the talk of the town. The Grand Princess and the Lady of Yong'an Manor severed my limbs and kept me in a jar, tormenting me daily to vent their anger. They didn't know I had actually done it on purpose. As a peasant girl, I was illiterate, ignorant of people, and knew nothing of court politics. I was merely a plaything and a pawn in the hands of the powerful. So in this life, I stake myself in the game, using this life's fate to buy foresight for the next. I used Xiao Fei to learn from him about the key figures in the court and their relationships, paying attention to major events that happened to them after being trapped. I used the gold and silver I had hidden in various places of the Marquis mansion, along with the jewelry Xiao Fei gave me, to bribe the little maid Kui Dai into telling me about major events happening outside every day. For the sake of this gold and silver, during the chaos in the capital, the little maid Kui Dai risked her life to hide me. After finding the final treasure, the jade bamboo hairpin, I had Suejia end her life with a dagger. Opening my eyes again, I faced the woman in the cave, her face covered in bruises, and gave her a sweet smile. Suspicion flickered in the woman's eyes, but she still handed me the cloth piece with the blood-written message. Returning home down the mountain, the moment I stepped into the courtyard gate, I suddenly collapsed to the ground. After the physician summoned by grandfather had applied the acupuncture needles, I slowly opened my eyes. Facing the white-haired old doctor, I said coldly, "Tomorrow at dusk, your grandson will fall from a locust tree east of the village and break his left leg. Remember to immobilize it with a wooden splint and let him rest for half a month, or he will be crippled for life." With that, the whites of my eyes rolled back, and I fainted once again. The household was thrown into chaos. It took about the time for a cup of tea to cool before I gradually came to. By then, The old physician had already left. My elder sister said I had suffered a hysterical episode. And grandfather had gone to fetch medicine for me. The next evening, the old doctor suddenly came to my house and asked me how I knew his grandson would fall from the locust tree. I said a white-bearded old man told me in a dream while I was unconscious. After hearing my description, he excitedly said it must have been the manifestation of the great supreme elderly lord. My grandparents laughed at him for being delusional. The old doctor wasn't a real physician. He had worked as an errand boy in a clinic when he was young, learned a few medicinal herbs, and secretly picked up some acupuncture techniques. Over time, whenever someone in the village had a headache or fever, they would go to him for help, and gradually, people began to respectfully call him the old doctor. The old doctor, with his medical skills, had a wide network of connections. And soon the news of the divine manifestation of the Supreme Lord Laozi upon me spread through his words. More than half a month later, I said to Gui Nyo, with whom I often played, "Tomorrow when your grandpa goes up the mountain, tell him not to go to the north side of the forest. There's a black bear there, or he might get killed by the blind bear." Gui Nyo's face fell. "Don't you curse my grandpa," she said, then turned and went home. The next evening, the sound of gongs and drums echoed from the village entrance. The little brother came bouncing into the yard. Sister Gui Nyo's grandfather hunted a black bear, as big as half a house. It wasn't until the gong and drum procession reached my doorstep, and Gui Nyo's grandfather presented me with the most precious bear paw, that everyone realized he had listened to Gui Nyo's retelling of my words. That day, he went up the mountain not only with 6 men, fully prepared, but also deliberately headed north, and sure enough, he found traces of the black bear. Just thinking about how he had originally planned to go alone to retrieve the prey from the trap sends a chill down my spine. After that, I predicted that the village chief's son would pass the imperial examination at the county level, and that the top scholar of this session would have the surname Tong. The news that I was the reincarnation of an immortal attendant under the great supreme elder spread quickly, and soon my home was surrounded by people from all around seeking predictions. I told them that, as I was now in a mortal body, I could only make one prediction per month, and it would be based on fate. Those without a destined connection would not receive one. After that, every prediction I made for those with a destined connection came true. After half a year, I finally waited for the person I was waiting for. The first to visit was not the Grand Princess, but Shun Tai. Interestingly, he didn't ask about anything, just drank tea, played chess, and chatted with me, back and forth. We actually developed a friendship that transcended age. Fortunately, I've died enough times, in my previous lives, to better resemble Shen Qinglan. I now can write beautiful calligraphy in the delicate Zanhua style, possess decent chess skills, and have developed my own insights into poetry and prose. Yet, traces of Shen Qinglan are evident in all of these. These accomplishments wouldn't be unusual for any young lady from an official's family, but the catch is that I was a farm girl who couldn't read until the age of 14, and no one in my family was literate. All of this has been attributed to my being the reincarnation of an immortal attendant under the great supreme elderly lord. With Shun Tai's protection, my family's status also rose accordingly. My younger brother was sent to study at the Shun family's elementary school. My grandfather and mother no longer had to work for others. They fulfilled their wish by opening a small pastry shop in the capital. My elder sister also secured an excellent marriage proposal, with the other party being a scholar from a farming family recommended by Shun Tai, who is both virtuous and academically outstanding, and has now become a Shotsai, a successful candidate in the imperial examination at the county level. This September was the hottest year in Liang Kingdom. Yet I made a bold prediction. In October, the capital will see snowfall, and the streets will be littered with the starving dead. Once the prediction was made, many commoners grew anxious, and people began hoarding grain frantically. The price of grain in the capital soared. Shun Tai's political opponents came forward, accusing the other side of using me to spread bewitching words and disturb the people's hearts. In the imperial prison, I met the Grand Princess. She was as extravagant as I had seen in my previous life. To prevent the filth of the prison from soiling her feet, beautiful maids laid thick carpets from the entrance all the way through, and the carpets were further covered with thick layers of petals, all because she found the air here foul. Every few feet along the carpet, ice basins were placed to cool the air. One prisoner, drawn by the chill, moved too close to one and was immediately executed by the princess's guard. The cleanliness-obsessed princess, for once, did not disdain the filth. Instead, she praised the guard, remarking on the elegance of the blood spray when he drew his blade through the prison bars. The princess looked down at me from her lofty position. "I hear you can make judgments." "Yes, Your Highness the Princess. Although I dislike your face very much, If you are truly as accurate as the rumors claim, I can grant you a dignified end. I looked up at her, my eyes devoid of sorrow or joy, fear or worry, leaving only indifference. Your Highness has come for the Lady of Yongan Manor, I presume. How dare you? How could someone like you presume to guess the thoughts of the Princess Royal? As the matron-in-waiting scolded me, a long sword was pressed against my neck, its blade gleamed darkly, a fine weapon for killing. Blood trickled down my neck, yet I remained seated upright, my expression indifferent. The Princess Royal let out a light laugh, truly eloquent and decisive. My affair with Ninga has long been no secret. You're making too big a fuss over it. Lian Xiantong, please give me a judgment, I said coldly. This month's quota for judgments has been used up. Please come back at the end of next month. Princess, how dare you? The long sword pressed against my neck cut half an inch into the flesh, a long line of blood staining the white robe I wore. My seated posture remained completely unmoved. The Grand Princess narrowed her eyes and said, "In that case, let the Lotus Immortal Child rest well here. I shall return next month." After the Grand Princess left that day, the floor of the prison where I was held echoed with screams one after another. All the prisoners, except for me, were executed. In the early days of the 10th month of the 6th year of Yongjing, the originally scorching capital suddenly turned cold. Overnight, a heavy snowfall like goose feathers transformed the entire capital into a crystalline palace of jade. The name Lotus Immortal Child spread throughout the Liang Kingdom. Emperor Chu personally received me. Gazing at the heavy palace walls before me, I suppressed the excitement in my heart and followed the eunuch guide at a steady, unhurried pace. I had finally reached the pinnacle of power in the Liang Kingdom. Regarding this once-in-a-century snow disaster, the emperor asked me for a solution. In front of all the court officials, I replied, "A blood sacrifice." The entire court was in an uproar. Some said I was spreading heresy to deceive the masses, some said it violated the harmony of nature, and some called me a wicked heretic. I was once again thrown into the imperial prison. Late at night, the emperor arrived with his close attendants. After a secret conversation lasting 1 hour, the emperor left satisfied. On the 15th day of the 10th month of the 6th year of Yongjing, the emperor took all the imperial relatives except the Empress Dowager to Luolan Temple to pray for blessings, hoping that his sincerity would move the heavens to end the heavy snowfall soon. The area within 10 miles of Luolan Temple was cleared, and the monks inside, sitting in rows chanting scriptures, were unaware that they were to be the sacrificial offerings in a blood ritual. When the emperor's guards placed their swords against the abbot's neck, Princess Chu Huayu's expression changed. "Brother, why are you doing this?" "Why, it's because this Luolan temple, which appears to be a pure and tranquil Buddhist sanctuary, is actually a den of iniquity. How dare they commit such evil deeds right under the emperor's nose, harming our nation's fortune? Only by offering them as a sacrifice to heaven can we appease the divine punishment." The princess forced a smile and said, "How could that be? From what I know, the abbot of this temple, Master Huamiao, is the most respected and virtuous." Before she could finish her words, a group of imperial guards appeared, escorting several warrior monks and leading a crowd of women in tattered clothes. One of the pregnant women, upon seeing the princess, suddenly burst into tears and rushed toward her, crying, "Mother, it's me, Ninga." Who would have thought that Lady Chuzi Ning of Yongan Marquisate was actually the daughter born from the illicit affair between Princess Chuwayu and the monk Huamiao? And this Huamiao was quite a character, a lustful and indulgent man. Yet aside from the princess bearing him a daughter, he fathered no other children. Hui Miao, for some unknown reason, actually came up with the idea of binding his own daughter inside the temple and having his disciple father a child with her to continue the family line. It was precisely because of this that, although the Grand Princess was aware of the misdeeds of Luolan Temple, after the disappearance of the Yongan Marquis's wife, Chu Xining, she searched all over the capital without ever suspecting that Hui Miao would abduct his own biological daughter. The Grand Princess's family was reunited. And the Emperor was both moved and exhilarated. He never expected that I could foresee events with such divine accuracy. The most crucial part of the blood sacrifice has been set in place. That is, a family of 3 with royal bloodline is needed to appease the wrath of heaven. The eldest princess had long been defying moral norms, but never so blatantly as today, right before everyone's eyes, relying on her merit in supporting the emperor's ascension and the backing of the Empress Dowager. She had wronged every member of the royal family except the emperor himself. Astute observers had already guessed the emperor's intention in bringing the royal relatives and their families here, so no one came to her aid. Seeing the emperor's determination, the princess angrily rebuked him. "If it weren't for my mother, how could you have come this far?" "If not for..." The chief eunuch gave a signal to his subordinates, and immediately someone stepped forward to gag the princess. To avoid any mishap, Huamiao and the Lady of Yong'an Marquis were not spared either. Woo-woo. At that moment, Lady Chu Xining of Yong'an Marquis noticed me standing behind the emperor. I smiled at the princess and her daughter and said, "This is a blessing bestowed by heaven. In your next life, you shall surely be rewarded." I personally lit the firewood beneath the altar, watching the raging flames reduce these beasts to ashes. Originally, the emperor intended to explain the massacre of the monks in Luolan Temple as a voluntary sacrifice to heaven for the sake of the people. How could I allow these villains to be honored with a good name? Under my persuasion, it was changed to the monks of Luolan Temple being spies from an enemy state who attempted to assassinate the emperor during his prayer, with the elder princess sacrificing herself to save him and unfortunately losing her life. The gravely ill Empress Dowager in the Deep Palace, upon learning of the death of the Grand Princess, passed away. On the 29th day of the 10th month in the 6th year of Yongjing, the snow stopped and the sky cleared. The state of Chu gained a new female state preceptor, Yu Lian. Freed from the constraints of the Empress Dowager and the Grand Princess, Emperor Chu Qiu acted with increasing recklessness, disregarding the ongoing disaster relief efforts. He sought to impose additional taxes to fund the construction of the stargazing tower. He wanted me to assert Chu Qi's whereabouts. On the day the stargazing tower was completed, I meditated at its peak for a full day and night, and arrived at an assertion: the dragon emerges from the northwest. 3 days later, the former crown prince Chu Qi raised an army in the northwest. The proclamation against Chu Qiu enumerates the crimes of Chu Qiu, detailing how he, along with consort Wen and Princess Chu Huayu, poisoned his own father, murdered his elder brother, appointed treacherous officials during his reign, and persecuted loyal and virtuous ministers. The former crown prince Chu Qi, surprisingly still alive, has caused a massive uproar in the already unstable court. Chu Qi's uprising in the northwest has also brought a royal scandal to light. Chu Qi and Chu Qiu were originally biological brothers from the same mother. Unwilling to remain subordinate to Crown Prince Chu Qi, Chu Qiu conspired with consort Wen and her daughter to kill their father and brother to seize power. Therefore, with a single call from Chu Qi, the entire nation responded. The moment his troops reached the city gates, the gates swung open, and soldiers and civilians lined the streets to welcome him. After the new emperor ascended the throne, Grand Tutor Shentai was appointed as the right chancellor for his meritorious service. Once the court stabilized, rumors spread that Shen Qinglan, was the reincarnation of a lotus. Inns and taverns throughout the capital seemed to have agreed to tell the love story of Chu Qi and Shen Qinglan. Back then, when Chu Qi was still the crown prince, he and Shen Qinglan were truly childhood sweethearts. At that time, Xiao Fei, the heir of the Yong'an Marquis, served as the crown prince's study companion, and the three of them were originally close friends in their youth. Crown Prince Chu Qi and Shen Qinglan were deeply in love with each other, consumed by unrequited feelings. Xiao Fei, for his own selfish reasons, leaked the crown prince's travel plans to Nanju, leading to Chu Qi being pursued and going missing under the hunt by Chu Qiu and others. Shen Qinglan inadvertently discovered the secret letters of Xiao Fei and Chu Qiu and was framed and murdered. Fortunately, the way of heaven prevails in the world. Unwilling to let people suffer at the hands of these villains, allowing Shen Qinglan, originally an immortal attendant under the great Lord Lao Jun, to be reborn in the body of a peasant girl, Yu Lian. During the confiscation of the family property, soldiers found a jade bamboo hairpin, Shen Qinglan's favorite during her lifetime, in the study of the Marquis of Yong'an, and discovered a secret letter hidden within it. The contents of the letter detailed the conspiracy of Chu Qiu and others to assassinate Crown Prince Chu Qi. The nation was in an uproar, and the common people were even more convinced that Chu Qi was the true destined emperor. Otherwise, why would the immortal attendants under the great supreme elderly lord descend to the mortal world to assist him? Soon after, I received the imperial decree from the new emperor, ordering me to marry him and become his empress. At the moment I received the decree, though I felt unwilling in my heart, I still accepted it and silently acknowledged these rumors, according to their arrangement. I acknowledged Shentai as my adoptive father and retreated into the seclusion of the Deep Palace after the grand wedding. In the same year, Chu Qi changed the era name to Zhenwu. In the 3rd year of Zhenwu, I gave birth to a son for the emperor, named Chumi. In the 6th year of Zhenwu, Chu Qi fell seriously ill, appointed Chumi as the crown prince, and the left chancellor concurrently served as the grand tutor of the crown prince, responsible for instructing the crown prince and overseeing state affairs. In the 7th year of Zhenwu, citing the young age of the crown prince and the occasional confusion of the elderly grand tutor, I began to govern from behind the curtain. During this period, I vigorously promoted public education, allowing all children, regardless of gender, to begin their studies at the age of 6. Households across the capital enshrined longevity tablets in my honor. And the common people revered me as the Lotus Mother Empress. By the 10th year of Genwu, my authority among the people had grown daily. Left Minister Shuntai publicly accused me of a hen crowing like a rooster and disrupting the court's order, leading to his assassination by radical young officials. Immediately after, Shuntai's faction was exposed for their crimes and manipulation of the imperial examinations, with someone risking their life to reveal the truth. Following this, the remnants of Shuntai's faction in the court faced confiscation of property, imprisonment, or dismissal from their posts. I seized the opportunity to install my own people in their positions. In this life, I have finally truly reached the pinnacle of power in the state of Chu. No one can control the fate of me and my family anymore. Second story. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I returned to the capital with my husband. General Lu blocked my path and scolded me. I just took her out for a walk to relax, and you run away from home. Your temper is getting worse and worse. I looked at him, puzzled, about to respond. The little girl beside me tugged at my sleeve and called me mother. In March, my husband was transferred back to the capital and brought me and the child along. While staying at the post station, I overheard a casual conversation between two people at the next table. Have you heard? 5 days ago, General Lu went horse racing in the suburbs with friends and ended up falling off his horse. He was badly injured. Hearing the familiar name, I was momentarily dazed, unconsciously. It had been 3 years since I last saw that person. My husband Jilin is not from the capital and has no property here. He rented a small courtyard in advance and bought 2 maidservants. Only then did the family settle down, in the first few days after arriving in the capital. Jilin was busy visiting his superiors and colleagues. I had nothing to do at home, so I also went to catch up with old friends. That day, Jilin was busy at the Ministry of Revenue until very late. I had just put my daughter to sleep when suddenly there was a thunderous knocking at the door. The maid hesitated about whether to open the door. In the past, when Jilin returned late, he never knocked so forcefully. Lu Chiue, open the door, a familiar voice called out. I instantly knew who the person outside the door was. I waved the maid away, put on my clothes, and went to open the door. Lu Yun stood outside the door, his face pale, the bandage on his head already stained with blood, perhaps because of his injury. His expression was rather displeased. How did you get here? You've really made something of yourself, Lu Chiue. I hadn't finished speaking when Lu Yun interrupted me. He walked straight into the courtyard, looking around, to spite me. You even resorted to running away from home. You must have spent a fortune to find such a shabby place. Jilin had passed the imperial examination as the top scholar and had only been an official for 2 years. There wasn't much money left at home, so naturally, we couldn't rent a decent house. What surprised me, though, were Lu Yun's words. What did he mean by saying I ran away from home out of spite towards him? Back when I left the Lu residence, I had deceived everyone by claiming I was returning home to marry my childhood sweetheart from the same village. At that time, Lu Yun's face was tense, his eyes filled with rage. He uttered a harsh threat at me. Lu Chiue, get as far away as possible, and never let me see you again. The argument from 3 years ago is still vivid in my mind, but at this moment, Lu Yun acted as if all those disagreements had never happened. Seeing him about to enter the inner room, I quickly stepped forward to block his way. Lu Yun, what are you doing? Go back at once. If the neighbors were to see me entangled with a strange man late at night, where would I ever put my face after that? Lu Yun stopped in his tracks, looking down at me. He raised his hand as if to touch my face. I took several steps back in fright, glaring at him with a guarded expression. Lord Lu, I am no longer a member of the Lu household. Please show some self-respect. Lu Yun not only didn't get angry at my words, but actually laughed. Alright, I know you're upset. Isn't that why I'm here to coax you? I just spent a few days accompanying Yuan Wn to relax, and you're making such a fuss. I originally wanted to give you the cold shoulder for a few days to make you reflect, but who knew you'd be so stubborn you didn't even come to see me when I was injured. His gaze drifted from my face and slowly settled on my stomach. The originally impatient tone softened a bit. I've heard that pregnant women tend to have a bad temper, so I won't argue with you this time. I've discussed it with mother. Since you want the child, then go ahead and have it, but given your low status, it would be better to raise the child by the main wife's side in the future. He kept chattering on by himself. I sensed something was off. Pregnant, that was 3 years ago. So, is Lu Yun suffering from amnesia? Lu Yun. I quickly interrupted his nagging. Are you mixing things up? I'm 23 this year, and I left the Lu residence 3 years ago. Upon hearing my words, Lu Yun looked slightly surprised, but soon, He returned to his usual nonchalant demeanor. I know you're just playing around with me like the others. What 23, Lu Chiue? You're clearly 20 this year. As he spoke, he tried to step forward to hug me, but I quickly dodged again. Repeated dodging made Lu Yun somewhat displeased. Lu Chiue, I've already lowered myself to coax you. That's enough, don't act all high and mighty with me just because you're pregnant. I'm serious. I left the Lu residence 3 years ago and got married. I was getting a bit anxious. This Lu Yun was really stubborn. In response, Lu Yun let out a scornful laugh. You're getting better at making up lies. Do you really think I'd believe that? Lu July, you've been with me for several years. Can you really leave me? Though phrased as a question. The tone was utterly certain. Yes, everyone thought my talk of leaving was just a joke, an attempt to manipulate Lu Yun. After all, I am already Lu Yun's person. Where else could I go without him? At the age of 5, the village was hit by a flood. I followed my parents, my younger brother, and a large group of refugees, beginning a life of wandering with no fixed home. Since we didn't have much food with us, my 3-year-old brother cried all day long. My parents had no choice. While I was asleep, they sold me to a human trafficker for 200 copper coins. Later, I was bought by the butler of the Lu residence and became a servant of the Lu family. Madame Lu had only one child, Lu Yun. She doted on him as if he were a precious treasure. Lu Yun was the same age as my younger brother, and no one in the entire Lu residence dared to provoke him. Perhaps it was because I was used to coaxing my younger brother before. The soft sword I made from grass unexpectedly caught Lu Yun's particular favor, so Madame Lu transferred me to Lu Yun's side to take care of his daily needs. Lu Yun had a bad temper. When happy, he calls me sister. When unhappy, he makes me kneel in the courtyard for hours. The name Lu Chiue was given by him because I came to the Lu family in July, when Lu Yun was 10 years old. He went to study at the academy with a group of his young friends. Lady Lu was worried, so she asked me to accompany him. That day, Lu Yun flew into a terrible rage, all because his friends teased me, calling me his child bride. Perhaps feeling ashamed, Lu Yun pushed me hard to the ground. I'm afraid she'd dirty my bed, one of them teased. This little maid is quite pretty. If brother Lu doesn't want her, why not give her to me? At these words, Lu Yun's eyes seemed to spit fire, but he still smiled on the surface. Sure, but you're just a dog of the Lu family. I'll give you to him once I'm tired of playing with you. That night, Lu Yun returned to his residence. He made me kneel outside his room for the entire night. For the next 2 days, he didn't allow anyone to give me food. He stood at the door, looking down at me from above. Lu Chiue, since you enjoy flirting with men so much, kneel here and let everyone have a good look. I knelt all night and went hungry for 2 days, until I finally fell ill. In my daze, Lu Yun came to see me. He sat by my bedside, his expression cold and indifferent. Do you know you were wrong? I quickly nodded. Since Lu Yun wanted me to admit my mistake, I simply went along with it. He was the master, and I was the servant. How could I have the right to be angry with him? Although Lu Yun was hard to please, life in the Lu residence was still quite good, compared to wandering around with no guarantee of the next meal. I'd much rather stay here. Seeing me obediently admit my mistake, Lu Yun's expression softened a great deal. From that day on, Lu Yun no longer let me do anything else. Only focusing on taking care of him. In his spare time, he would also teach me to read and paint. When Lu Yun was 16, a young lady from his mother's side of the family came to the Lu residence. Yuan Wan's father was assigned to a provincial post. The journey was long, and he couldn't bear to see his daughter suffer, so he sent her to the Lu family. The moment Yuan appeared, she instantly captured everyone's attention. She was beautiful and graceful, with every movement exuding the poise of a young lady from a noble family. The servants in the mansion all liked Yuan very much. Occasionally, I overheard the servants discussing. They said that the Lu couple were already discussing arranging a marriage between Lu Yun and Yuan. As for Lu Yun, I think he likes Yuan too. The two often discussed poetry together, and on Lu Yun's face, there was a tenderness I had never seen before, until that day. When the two of them had an argument for some unknown reason, I happened to be passing by them, carrying a pile of clothes. Seeing me approach, Lu Yun pulled me into his arms. When will you ever be as gentle as I, the chambermaid? I challenged Yuan whose eyes were brimming with tears. Yuan was so angry she couldn't speak, and she turned and ran away. I don't know why Lu Yun would say such a thing, after taking care of him for so many years. There has always been a clear and proper boundary between us. After this incident spread, the way everyone looked at me also changed. 3 days later, Lu Yun gave Yuan a hairpin he had made himself. The two reconciled. But the way Yuan looked at me was no longer as friendly as before. To avoid trouble, I began to make myself scarce around them. a year later, just as the Lu family was about to arrange the marriage for the two. Yuan Wan's father was promoted and transferred back to the capital due to his outstanding political achievements. Along with the rewards that entered the Yuan family, there was also an imperial edict bestowing a marriage. Yuan Wen became the crown princess and moved out of the Lu residence. After she left, Lu Yun spent his days in the company of wine. Out of concern for her son, Lady Lu instructed me to deliver hangover soup to his room every day. One afternoon, as usual, I placed the hangover soup on the table and was about to leave, but Lu Yun grabbed hold of me. In the struggle, I told him I was Lu Qiue, not Yuan Wen. I know. Lu Yun buried his face in my neck, his voice muffled. Qiue, don't avoid me. I moved into Lu Yun's room, no longer having to squeeze into a single room with the other servants. Delicacies from land and sea, silks and satins, rare treasures, whatever novel items there were, Lu Yun would bring them to me during the day. He trained with General Lu in the military camp. As soon as he returned home, he would spend all his time with me. This is something I've never experienced in my 19 years of life. The dazzling array of flowers is captivating. I am indulged in the affection Lu Yun gives me. Sometimes, looking at that handsome face so close, a thought flashes through my mind: if only it could stay like this forever. On Lu Yun's 18th birthday, we had agreed to celebrate together, but he never returned home. I overheard the servants talking outside the door. Only then did I learn that the crown prince had committed a grave mistake, demoted to a commoner by the emperor, and exiled to the southern border. Before being demoted, the crown prince gave his consort, Yuan Wen, a letter of divorce and sent her back to her family. Thus, the matter did not implicate Yuan Wen. Lu Yun, upon hearing the news, rushed to the Yuan family to visit Yuan Wen. He did not return until I fell asleep. In the following days, Lu Yun also left early and returned late. The servants in the mansion always liked to gossip in private. They said that Yuan Wen had been feeling down, and Lu Yun had been accompanying her on outings to lift her spirits. Sitting in my room, I listened to these words, simply packed my things, and moved out of Lu Yun's quarters. He was busy accompanying Yuan Wen and didn't notice anything amiss. Or perhaps he simply didn't care whether I stayed or left. Finally, one day, Lu Yun seemed to remember that there was someone like me in the house. He came back and had a meal with me. The two sat at the same table, neither speaking. The atmosphere was heavy. He didn't say anything as usual or crack a few jokes to make me laugh. You moved back again. Halfway through the meal, Lu Yun was the first to speak. I nodded and continued shoveling rice into my mouth. The question was truly unnecessary. I had already moved out for several days, and only now did he think to ask. The room fell silent again. After a long while, he spoke again. I've been quite busy these past few days and haven't been able to attend to you. In a few days, when I return, I'll spend some proper time with you. I nodded again. Lu Yun was displeased now. Are you mute? I'm talking to you. I'm listening. I replied briefly and gave him a baffled look. With him saying that, what other opinion could I possibly have? I can't just tell him not to go find Yuan Wen. I don't have the right to meddle in his private affairs. After all, I'm just a chambermaid, not even a concubine with a proper title. But then I think about what he said, that after spending time with Yuan Wen, he would come back to me. I don't know why, but I feel a bit nauseous. Thinking this, I ended up vomiting as well. Lu Yun frowned and reached out to pat my back. Why are you so careless? You, as if suddenly realizing something. Lu Yun's patting motion abruptly halted. He first looked at my stomach, then shifted his gaze to my eyes. His brow furrowed so deeply it seemed to form the character for river. Could you be pregnant? I was startled by his words, but instantly remembered that my period hadn't come for quite some time. Before I could even speak, Lu Yun was the first to break the silence. Qiue, I can't have a child right now. Haven't you been taking the medicine? I could hear the firmness in his tone. Indeed, prominent families would never allow a concubine to bear a child before the official wife enters the household. Lu Yun understood this principle, yet he was completely unrestrained in matters of the bedroom. It's also my own fault. Whenever he showed me a little kindness, I'd get carried away, thinking that after all these years by his side, I might be an exception. Seeing my silence, Lu Yun thought I was unwilling. He raised his voice. July, don't forget your place. It seems I've spoiled you too much, letting you get ideas above your station. With your background, you could never become a daughter-in-law of the Lu family. Be good. If you become pregnant, go see a doctor. After the new bride enters the household, I will take you as my concubine. After saying this, Lu Yun stood up and left without looking back. The next day, I went to see a doctor and found out I was already 2 months pregnant. Leaving the medical clinic, I wandered aimlessly down the street. As my gaze drifted past a tailor's shop, my eyes could no longer look away. At the entrance of the shop, Lu Yun and Yuan Wn were walking inside. The street was crowded, and Lu Yun shielded Yuan Wn in his arms. When I looked down at her, my gaze was cautious. I instinctively followed after her. The ready-to-wear shop was bustling with business, and the store was packed with people. Yuan Wn's critical eyes swept over the clothes one by one, clearly unsatisfied. The shop assistant followed behind them, smiling apologetically and politely. If there's anything the two of you are unsatisfied with, our shop can also offer custom tailoring. He led Yuan Wn and the other person to some fabric remnants for them to choose from. This one is quite good. Yuan Wn picked out a roll of bright red brocade. She turned to look at Lu Yun. When the child is born, we can sew 100 blessings quilt for them. Lu Yun nodded in agreement and handed over the money to buy the roll of silk, through the crowd. I overheard their conversation. Is Yuan Wn pregnant? I didn't stagger out of the shop until their figures disappeared from sight. I turned around and went back to the medical clinic I had just visited. When I came out, I was holding a packet of medicine. It turns out, Lu Yun wasn't against having children, he just didn't want children that came from my womb. That very night, I asked Lu Yun for my indenture papers so I could leave the Lu residence. Who would have thought he would fly into such a rage? In July, where else can you go without me? I know you don't really want to leave, you're just threatening me, right? I don't want to argue with you. Get rid of the child as soon as possible, and I'll give you the status of a concubine, he said impatiently and stormed out, slamming the door. A few days later, Lu Yun brought Yuan Wn back home. He told Madame Lu that he wanted to marry Yuan Wn. She was already carrying the Lu family's bloodline in her womb. Madame Lu fainted on the spot in anger. Less than a month after Yuan Wn divorced the deposed crown prince, her son was about to marry her. If this were to get out, where would the Lu family's dignity be? The household was in chaos, but Lu Yun didn't seem to care at all. He arranged for Yuan Wn to stay in the best courtyard in the mansion. A steady stream of tonics was sent in every day. Occasionally, once or twice, he would come to sit with me. His words were always the same, repeated over and over. I ignored him. And he would leave in a huff when he felt he wasn't getting anywhere. I couldn't delay any longer. While he was out on business, I went to see Madame Lu. I lied and said that I had run into a childhood playmate from my hometown while I was out some time ago. Now that I am 20, it's time to consider marriage. Moreover, I have already secretly pledged myself to a fellow townsman. Previously, Lu Yun was always clinging to me, which had already displeased Madame Lu. She felt that I was holding him back. It made him neglect his proper duties. Now that I offered to leave, Madame Lu naturally agreed. A deed of indenture was handed to me. That very day, I left the Lu residence with my bundle. I boarded the ship, and Lu Yun rushed to the dock just in time. He grabbed me, his face dark and stormy, looking as if a tempest was about to break. Where are you going? Return home. Get married, I answered briefly. Lu Yun sneered. Get married? With whom? Lu Chiyue, with a body that's been played with like yours. Who would even want you? Truly, it's Lu Yun. He always knows how to hurt me. He can speak gently and softly to Yuan Wn. To me, you can always scold me however you want. I looked up, for the first time not avoiding his gaze. Young master, I am already carrying the child of my fiancé. If I don't leave, would you be willing to be the father of this child? What a coincidence. I also know how to provoke Lu Yun most effectively. He was such a proud man. How could he bear the thought of his chambermaid having an affair with another man? As expected, Lu Yun's expression twisted upon hearing this. You're carrying another man's child. When did this happen? While you were spending time with Yuan Wn and had no time to come home. If looks could kill, I would have been riddled with holes by now. So you went to find someone else. Lu Chiyue, how could you be so cheap and promiscuous? I remained silent, enduring his fury. If enduring a few harsh words from him meant I could leave, then it would be worth it. After a long while, Lu Yun released his hand and took 2 steps back. He took out a handkerchief from his chest and wiped the hand that had touched me. Do you know, I find you disgusting just by looking at you now. Get lost, Lu Chiyue. Don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I'll kill you and that adulterer. After saying this, he turned around, mounted his horse, and left without looking back. I boarded the ship, but instead of returning to my hometown, I arrived at an unfamiliar place. Over the years, I had saved up some extra money, so I rented a small room. My neighbor, Aunt G, is a very warm-hearted person. She lost her husband early in life and raised the child all by herself. Knowing it wasn't easy for a woman like me, he often brought over some food. Once everything settled down, I took out the medicine prescribed by the doctor earlier, boiled it, and drank it all. Lying in bed, it wasn't long before a tearing pain spread from my lower abdomen throughout my body. Before I passed out, I seemed to hear a frantic knocking at the door. Later, I learned that I had taken too strong a dose of medicine that day, causing my body to bleed. Aunt Ji's son, Ji Lin, had been sent over to deliver something and found me unconscious, frantically calling for a doctor. Later still, Aunt Ji passed away. Ji Lin achieved the top score in the imperial examination. He requested an official post away from the capital, citing the need to observe mourning for his parents. The emperor approved his request. Ji Lin returned to his hometown with great fanfare and became the local magistrate. He asked me if I was willing to marry him. Memories of the past flashed before my eyes one by one. I looked at the man in front of me, my heart already devoid of any emotion. Lu Yun. 3 years ago I obtained my freedom papers. At that point, we no longer had any ties. Lu Yun was silent for a long moment, as if digesting my words. Do you think I would believe that? How could you get married? We've been together for so many years, how could you bear to leave me? Seeing that he still didn't believe me, I felt a headache coming on. Mother, a drowsy voice came from behind. Afu had woken up at some point, rubbing her eyes. She wobbled over to me and hugged my leg. Li Yun's gaze fell upon the little figure before him, as if lost in thought. Is this, my daughter? Me, Lu Yun. Are you out of your mind? I've already told you I'm married. This child's surname is Ji, not Lu. I was getting annoyed. It seemed Lu Yun hadn't just lost his memory, he must have hit his head and gone completely mad. Seeing that my expression didn't seem fake, Lu Yun put away the smile on his face. The courtyard was unlit, and he was almost blending into the darkness, with the surname Ji, Lu Chiue. You dare to have a child with someone else behind my back? His voice was full of sternness, which immediately frightened Afu to tears. I held my daughter in my arms with a pained heart. Soothing her gently, Lu Yun fell silent. I wanted to go back into the room, but he blocked my way. Amid the stalemate, a voice came from the doorway. Lord Lu visiting so late at night. What brings you here? I instinctively turned around to see Ji Lin standing at the courtyard gate, having returned at some unknown time. He had attended the morning court sessions for several days, so it seemed he knew Lu Yun. Ji Lin walked over and took Afu from my hands. Although he was a civil official, he didn't have the robust physique of Ji Lin, who was a military general. Yet, standing by my side, he made me feel incredibly secure. Lu Yun stared at us intently, his fists clenched so tightly they made cracking sounds. Is he your husband? When did you marry him? 3 years ago. Ji Lin answered before I could. In April. July became my neighbor. In August, I topped the imperial examinations, and in September, we got married. Is there anything else you'd like to ask, Lord Lu? Ji Lin spoke with great detail, as if afraid Lord Lu might not fully understand. April. Lu Yun muttered this time softly. Lu Chiue, you left my place in April, and in less than half a year, you married this man. What did our over a decade-long relationship mean to you? Lu Yun yelled at me, looking deeply hurt. Not to mention, you were pregnant with my child back then. How could you be so heartless? His words made me extremely displeased. Clearly, it was he who didn't want children. So why does it now seem like I'm the heartless one? Yes, to leave you after decades together and not want children. Lord Lu must have done something truly awful to make July so upset. Ji Lin fanned the flames from the side. I tugged at his sleeve, afraid that if he went too far, he might get beaten up. Ji Lin patted my hand and gave me a reassuring look. Watching the interaction between the two of us, Lu Yun smiled self-deprecatingly. He gave us one last look, dropped a sentence, and left my house. Lu Chiue, this isn't over. Lu Yun's words left me uneasy for days. I was afraid he might do something to harm Ji Lin and Afu. With a sense of trepidation, I received an invitation to the birthday banquet of the Dowager of the Duke's mansion. After marrying Ji Lin, these social engagements became unavoidable. Having just arrived in the capital, I wasn't very familiar with the noble ladies and young misses from prominent families. The women were all gathered in the rear courtyard of the Duke's mansion. Not knowing a single one, I had no choice but to take a seat in a corner. I had planned to keep a low profile today, finish my meal, and head home quickly. But trouble always seems to find me on its own. Not long after I arrived, Lady Lu showed up here, and behind her was Yuan Wn. The two of them greeted the others with familiar ease. Through the crowd, they also spotted me. I was just thinking of lowering my head and pretending not to see them. Yuan Wn had already walked over. Long time no see. July, what brings you here? Did you come with your master's family? Which household are you serving as a maid now? 3 years had passed, yet she remained as gentle and dignified as before. I took a sip of tea and did not answer her question. Now I sat there, with the maid brought from home standing behind me. The clothes I wore were no longer in the style of a servant. I refused to believe she didn't notice all of this. It was nothing more than a public humiliation aimed at me. Someone nearby noticed the tension between me and Yuan Wn and stepped in to make an introduction. This is the wife of Ji Hanlin. Ji Lin had achieved outstanding administrative accomplishments in his hometown, and this year he returned to the capital, where he was appointed by the emperor as a Hanlin academician, holding a third-rank official position. His official rank is higher than Lu Yun's. Now, the world is at peace, and the nation is prosperous and stable. For decades, the border had seen no major military conflicts. The military achievements of the Lu family were established by Lu Yun's grandfather's generation. Neither Lu Yun nor his father had ever set foot on a battlefield in the past. Lu Yun often lamented within the mansion that there was no opportunity to make contributions and achieve glory. Now the Lu family relies on the military achievements of their ancestors for protection, and the emperor favors civil officials over military ones. Gradually, it's inevitable that they face some setbacks in officialdom. Oh, so it's Madame Ji. Yuan Wn covered her mouth and chuckled softly. The way she said Madame Ji sounded quite dismissive. It's all my fault for having a poor memory. Seeing July, I was reminded of the days you used to be in Lu Yun's room. My apologies. Her voice wasn't particularly soft. Everyone present heard it clearly. In Lu Yun's room. Doesn't that imply I'm just a chambermaid? For a moment, more eyes fell upon me. I was almost amused with anger. I only entered Lu Yun's room after she married the deposed crown prince, but later when she arrived at the Lu residence, she always treated me as a maid trying to climb into the master's bed. She thought I was the one who seduced Lu Yun. I met Yuan Wan's gaze and smiled faintly. Miss Yuan, there's no need to blame yourself. Not just you, even I am reminded of the days you spent at the Lu residence when I see you. I glanced at Lady Lu beside her. I haven't returned to the capital for 3 years, so I'm not too familiar with the situation. Since Miss Yuan came with Lady Lu, should I address you as young Madame Lu? Upon hearing this, Yuan Wan's smile nearly slipped from her face. Some of those present couldn't help but chuckle. 3 years ago, Lu Yun fought with his family for a long time in order to marry Yuan Wn, but later, after the marriage was settled, Lu Yun suddenly changed his mind. The Yuan family had thought they could gain favor with the crown prince, so they rejected the marriage proposal with the Lu family. Later, the crown prince was deposed, and the Yuan family also fell out of favor with the emperor. Lu Yun was willing to marry Yuan Wn, and her parents were more than willing to agree. How could they possibly agree to the Lu family calling off the engagement? Back and forth, the Yuan family clung to the Lu family. Lu Yun had brought the person home in the first place, and now he couldn't send her away even if he wanted to. She just doesn't have a formal status in the Lu family, which is somewhat awkward. All of this was told to me by Ji Lin this morning. He knew I might run into the Lu family today, so he told me a lot to prepare me mentally. If anyone bullies you, just hit them where it hurts. Thinking of Ji Lin's advice, my mood improved quite a bit. After being married for a long time, I realized this person is just like a glutinous rice ball. On the surface, it appears pure and flawless, but once you take a bite, you find it's filled with black sesame. Seeing that I wasn't being polite at all, Yuan Wn no longer maintained the smile on her face. Don't think I don't know. Ah Yun went to see you last night, didn't he? Lu Chiue, you really have some skills. You just arrived in the capital and already have him completely bewitched. I grew impatient as she kept pestering me. Lord Lu did come to my house last night, but my husband was also there. The two of them exchanged a few words before Lord Lu left. Miss Yuan, you should be more careful with your words. This person is clearly trying to ruin my reputation when it comes to the art of seduction. Who could possibly compare to you, Miss Yuan? Just a month after the divorce, you've already found someone else. By the way, that child of yours must be over 2 years old now. Is it a boy or a girl? At the mention of the child, Yuan Wan's face instantly drained of color. That child was conceived during the peak of her passionate affair with the deposed crown prince. Unfortunately, Lu Yun later broke off the engagement. To please Lu Yun, she took the initiative to abort the child. This matter was hardly a secret in the capital. Bringing it into the open was, after all, disgraceful. Lady Lu did not like Yuan, but between her and me, she still tended to side with her own family. July, now that you're married, you should be more careful in your actions. Don't think about playing both sides. When Ayun goes to see you, you should persuade him to come home. After all, you were once part of the Lu family, even if you don't remember the kindness. You shouldn't tear this family apart. Lady Lu spoke to me with the same condescending tone as before. Even if Lu Yun was the one who came to me, she would still shift the blame onto me. I looked at her arrogant expression and retorted, Lord Lu is already 21 this year. If he still needs others to advise him on what to do and what not to do, no wonder he hasn't been promoted yet. It seems his mind isn't quite sharp enough. How dare you? Lady Lu yelled at me. It seems I really hit a sore spot. Lu Yun's failure in his official career bothered her deeply. Unfortunately, I was no longer the little maid who would kneel in fear the moment she got angry. Seeing that I wasn't the least bit afraid of her, Madame Lu's anger flared even more. Seeing this, the others quickly began to mediate. After all, it was someone else's home, and no matter how furious Lady Lu was, she had no choice but to hold it in. Finally, the meal came to an end. I immediately stood up, bid farewell to the host, and prepared to head home with my maid. Outside the Duke's mansion, Jilin was already waiting by the carriage. Today, men and women do not sit together, so I wasn't seated with him. Did you have a fight? Seeing me approach, Jilin straightened the hairpin in my hair. How did you know? Heard it from the servant. My lady is truly formidable. I glanced at him with amusement. It's just a quarrel, nothing to be happy about. While I was talking to Jilin, Lu Yun, along with Lady Yuan Wn, also left the Duke's mansion and headed toward a nearby carriage. Seeing me standing there, Yuan Wn muttered under her breath, "What bad luck." Jilin's expression shifted slightly, his sharp gaze piercing the three figures not far away. I tugged at him. "Let's go home. If Afu wakes up and doesn't see us, she'll cry." He withdrew his gaze and responded with a smile. "All right." We turned and boarded the carriage, and Lu Yun, who had been silent all along, suddenly called out to Jilin, "Jilin, do you think you've won? Chi-Yu and I grew up together. She's served me for so many years, how could she possibly fall for you?" Jilin didn't look back, just let out a light laugh. "To drive away someone who's been with you for so many years, Lord Lu. You're truly something, Tilda. Are you angry?" On the way home, Jilin didn't say a word. My heart was uneasy, worried that he might mind the matter between me and Lu Yun. Very angry, my heart instantly leaped to my throat, only to have him suddenly change the subject. "I'm angry at Lu Yun. For someone as wonderful as you to leave his side shows how much you must have suffered all those years. Lu Yun is truly despicable. If I were any more foolish, I would have been successfully manipulated by him into resenting you today." Jilin's words made my heart settle back into place. From childhood till now, no one has ever cared for me the way he does. At home, if my younger brother ever got hurt, I would be the one scolded and beaten by my parents. When I was young, Lu Yun's friend wanted me to be his concubine, but instead of blaming his friend, he blamed me for being restless. Lu Yun disliked studying, and his mother blamed me for leading him astray. Whenever Lu Yun was not at home, she would find all sorts of excuses to punish me. Kneeling, going hungry, her methods of torment were endless. Probably because I had it so rough before, that's why I was so devoted to Lu Yun as soon as he showed me a little kindness. Now that Jilin is here, I've completely come to my senses. From an outsider's perspective, Lu Yun is actually just SOSO, selfish and unruly, with an impulsive temper. Jilin held me in his arms, but his eyes were fixed outside the window. "July, don't grieve over the past anymore. I will avenge every humiliation you've suffered." 3 months later, the capital suddenly underwent a drastic change. Jilin submitted a memorial to the emperor, requesting the rehabilitation of the deposed crown prince. The charges of treason and embezzlement of disaster relief funds were all fabricated by the fourth prince to frame him. With conclusive evidence, the emperor, feeling guilty, recalled the deposed crown prince and restored his status. As the crown prince returned to the Eastern Palace, everyone waited to see the downfall of the Yuan and Lu families. After all, back then, to protect Yuan Wn from being implicated, the crown prince had sent her back to the Yuan family. But Yuan Wan's father immediately turned around and pledged allegiance to the fourth prince. In the following period, according to Jilin, the number of memorials impeaching the Yuan family was countless. Yuan Wan's father himself couldn't withstand close scrutiny and was soon demoted to a remote post. The climate there was harsh, a place where criminals were exiled. Yuan Wan's father, having no way out, came up with a foolish plan. He thought of using his daughter's past relationship with the crown prince to persuade him to show mercy. So he called Yuan Wn back from the Lu residence, got her drunk, and sent her to the crown prince's bed. Little did he know that she would be thrown out, bed and all. Yuan Wn felt ashamed and left the capital with her father. Jilin gained the crown prince's favor for helping him overturn the wrongful case and was promoted again. More and more people began to visit their home. The once empty courtyard now often saw his colleagues coming by for a visit. Occasionally, they would also stay for a few drinks. That evening, among the gathering crowd, there was an additional familiar figure. "Why is he here?" Lu Yun sat among a table of people, yet no one spoke to him. He just sat there in silence. Jilin was helping me prepare the vegetables in the kitchen and rolled his eyes when he heard my question. Just shameless, I never invited him. All the dishes were served, and everyone enjoyed the meal. Lu Yun remained silent, downing one glass of wine after another. Jilin put food into my bowl, others laughed and teased, saying Lord Ji spoils his wife. An unpleasant voice chimed in. July can't eat spicy food. As her husband, Lord G, how could you not know that? Lu Yun looked at us, and it wasn't hard to detect the sarcasm in his words. The others fell silent, their eyes shifting between us, feeling irritated. I directly ate the dish. Where did you hear that, Lord Lu? I actually love spicy food the most. Indeed, I've loved spicy food since I was a child. It's just that after entering the Lu residence, because Lu Yun didn't like it, the small kitchen started preparing all the dishes according to his taste. It took me a long time to change my eating habits. Hearing my rebuttal, Lu Yun's expression turned rather unpleasant. Lord Lu, why are you so concerned about Lady G? Could it be that you're thinking of getting married yourself? Go back and talk to your father quickly, and have General Lu choose a good marriage for you. A group of people chatted one after another, easing the awkward atmosphere at the table. As the moonlight fell, the group, having eaten and drunk their fill, stood up to take their leave. Only Lu Yun and Ji Lin remained seated, unmoving. Ji Lin's face was tinged with a faint blush. His eyes closed at the moment. I helped him up, preparing to take him back to the room. Lu Yun called out to me from behind, July, I'm drunk too. Why don't you come and show some concern for me? I don't know if it's just my imagination. But his voice sounded a bit aggrieved. Thinking of his improper behavior during dinner, I impatiently threw out a remark. Ji Lin is my husband, and who are you? Once inside the room, Ji Lin opened his eyes and pressed me against the door. His eyes were clear, not at all like someone who was drunk. This person is really persistent. He bent down and nuzzled my neck. It's rare to see Ji Lin acting so childlike. I find it rather amusing. Madam, it's getting late. You should go to bed early. The candle flame went out, and Ji Lin seemed to make quite a commotion on purpose. The sound carried outside, and I faintly heard the sound of a wine glass shattering in the courtyard. Soon, I had no energy left to worry about those things anymore. Ji Lin said he would find something for Lu Yun to do. Otherwise he would always come to bother me. It happened that bandits were causing trouble in the southern mountains. They often came down the mountain to rob, making the villagers miserable. Ji Lin recommended Lu Yun to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince nodded in agreement and went to see the Emperor. The next day, the imperial decree to suppress the bandits arrived at the Lu family. Lu Yun was extremely excited and ran to my doorstep, saying he would achieve merits to show me. I was a bit worried, afraid that if he really succeeded, he might cause trouble for Ji Lin. Upon hearing my concerns, Ji Lin said with a sarcastic tone, in your heart, are you so certain that he will complete the task assigned by the Emperor? At these words, I was instantly left speechless. I had no choice but to coax this jealous soul for a long while. July, the weather was sultry and oppressive. People on the streets all looked listless and weary. Just as dispirited as the passers-by were Lu Yun and his party, who had just returned from a bandit suppression campaign. In the past, Lu Yun often lamented that he was born at the wrong time. Had he been born in an era of war, he would surely have rendered outstanding service. Yet, to everyone's surprise, he failed in this mission to suppress the bandits. A ragtag group of untrained men, driven by a fearless momentum, forced Lu Yun into a continuous retreat. In his hasty retreat, Lu Yun was even struck in the leg by an arrow. Later, it was the Crown Prince who led the troops to the rescue. He pacified all the mountain bandits by offering them amnesty. When the news reached the capital, the emperor was furious. Lu Yun's failure undoubtedly made him feel humiliated. When Lu Yun returned to the capital, the emperor directly dismissed him from his post and ordered him to reflect at home. Afu's birthday is coming soon. I went out to the street intending to buy some things she likes. While picking out items, I suddenly heard someone calling my name from behind. I turned around and found Lu Yun standing not far away. Since being reprimanded by the emperor, I heard he rarely went out. I paid and prepared to go home, yet this person kept following behind me. July, do you think I'm useless? Yes, I thought this in my heart, but didn't show it on my face. Just wanting to hurry home, Lu Yun seemed to have opened the floodgates and kept talking non-stop. July, do you hate me a lot? I know I was too harsh 3 years ago. Always staying by Yuan Wan's side and neglecting you. Chiyu, you have to believe me, I don't like Yuan Wn. Back when the Crown Prince was deposed, she came to me crying, saying her father was going to send her to the fourth prince. The fourth prince is cruel and violent. After all, she is my cousin. I couldn't just watch her walk to her death. That's why I wanted to bring her to the estate. I didn't really want you to leave. I was just angry when I heard you were going to marry someone else. Shut up. Seeing Lu Yun rambling on endlessly, I really had no patience to listen any longer. Lu Yun, do you think I'm a fool? The day after Yuan Wn arrived at the Lu family, she said she wasn't feeling well and asked me to bring her some food. You were there that day too. Think carefully. What were you doing in Yuan Wan's room that day? There are some things I never wanted to say outright. Because I had no status in the Lu residence at that time, I wasn't in a position to question Lu Yun, so I kept it to myself, pretending as if nothing had happened. Reminded by me, Lu Yun instinctively recalled the events from 3 years ago, but as he thought about it, his face gradually turned pale. It seems Lord Lu has remembered. After following you for so many years, I never knew you had such a preference. I spoke mockingly, deliberately emphasizing the word preference. That day, I was holding a plate of pastries and about to knock on Yuan Wan's door, when suddenly, I heard a startled cry from inside. The door wasn't locked, and as if guided by some unseen force, I peered through the crack. Yuan Wn was sitting on the table, her clothes disheveled, one shoulder partially exposed. Lu Yun stood before her, the two of them locked in a tight embrace. There was no need to think twice to know what the two of them were doing. Yuan Wn saw me and, leaning on Lu Yun's shoulder, gave me a triumphant smile. I turned around, took that plate of pastries back to my room, and vomited everything I had eaten during the day. At that time, Yuan Wn was pregnant with the Crown Prince's child. Now, as I look back on those memories from the past, I don't feel any hatred anymore, just disgust. After our reunion, Lu Yun acted as if he couldn't forget me, which only made me think he was utterly hypocritical. Lu Yun, you don't like me, you're just uncomfortable because the servant who attended to you for years is no longer around. Don't show up in front of me again. Compared to Ji Lin, you're not even worth his toenail. Since I said those words to Lu Yun that day, he has not come to see me again. Ji Lin gained the favor of the Crown Prince, and his career in the officialdom has been very smooth. The emperor is getting old and falls ill every now and then. The responsibility of overseeing state affairs fell to the Crown Prince. Those with keen eyes can see that a new emperor brings his own courtiers. Ji Lin is considered a firmly established close confidant of the emperor. More and more people are currying favor and sending gifts. Ji Lin bought a large mansion, and Afu was overjoyed. Winter has arrived, and the northern barbarians, due to the drying up of rivers, withering vegetation, and the mass death of livestock, have begun to invade our dynasty's border. General Lu was ordered to the battlefield, and Lu Yun went with him. However, this time, he held no official position, just an ordinary soldier. Before setting out, he sent a letter to me at the mansion. I set the letter aside and focused on helping Afu with her reading. Shortly after the new year, news of the emperor's passing came from the palace. The crown prince ascended the throne, and Ji Lin entered the cabinet. I also became increasingly busy. In the blink of an eye, it had already been a year since I arrived in the capital. The minister's household was marrying off their daughter, and I went along with Ji Lin. After dealing with a crowd of ladies and young misses, I spotted Lady Lu, whom I hadn't seen in a long while. In a corner, streaks of silver were hidden among her black hair. Someone nearby was discussing. They said that in the border battle at the end of the year, although the barbarians were driven back to the grasslands, the Lu father and son, however, fell into the enemy's trap due to their excessive eagerness for quick success and were injured. Lu Yun broke his leg but managed to survive. Father and son returned to the capital, where the emperor bestowed some gifts upon them, then proceeded to withdraw General Lu's military authority. General Lu knew that because of Yuan Wan, his family had a rift with the new emperor. Now he was advanced in years, and his son had become disabled. He feared there would be no hope for promotion in this lifetime, so he requested the emperor to let him retire and return to his hometown, planning to go back when spring arrived. It's already March now. The Lu family will probably be setting off soon. Yes, toiling for a lifetime and ending up like this. It's truly a tragedy. Who can you blame for that? It's all because the young master of the Lu family couldn't let go and dared to covet the emperor's woman. Whispers of conversation reached my ears as I watched my daughter eating happily beside me. Suddenly, I remembered the murmurs Ji Lin whispered in my ear last night as I fell asleep. Now that the courtyard is bigger, Afu might feel lonely playing alone. Why not give her a little brother or sister? Mother, what are you smiling about? Afu's voice interrupted my wandering thoughts. I gently patted the top of her head. Afu, would you like to have a little brother or sister?
I do.